All right, welcome to CMKL's Tech Sites podcast. The goal of this podcast is to talk about new and trending topics in technology. My focus is on gaming. My name's Justin Paulson. I'm an assistant professor here.
My name is Mumin Sapsisukwashai. I am a student here at CMKL University.
And so all we're going to talk about today is Dragon's Dogma 2, which is based, of course, on the cult classic Dragon's Dogma, which came out actually, I think, 12 years ago. So, this game, when Dragon's Dogma first came out,
right,
nobody knew it. It was basically a flop.
The dark horse, essentially.
It was a dark horse. And, Capcom's a big publisher. They pump out a lot of games.
Yeah, alongside Resident Evil and everything that they pump out.
And plenty sneak under the radar. But it ended up being one of these cult classic games that really succeeded over the years by word of mouth alone. There wasn't a lot of marketing push. And there were a couple of interesting reasons for that, which we'll jump into. The most important two that we want to talk about today, the gameplay was amazing. The actual combat is awesome. You can climb on these enemies, and the enemies are huge. They're giant enemies. You can climb a troll and attack his head if your stamina stays high enough. The second thing is, and this is the topic for today's talk, there's something to be said for the idea of planned inconvenience. Making a game inconvenient on purpose. And of course, everyone at home right now is thinking Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma was way back during the Dark Souls, Demon Souls days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this planned inconvenience, it caters to a very loyal, very, let's say, vocal part of the gaming community.
I'm also very passionate.
Very passionate.
Yeah.
So let's start with some really simple questions for you, Pooh, because you're a younger guy than me, and you haven't been gaming as much as I have. I grew up playing Baldur's Gate, which is hair-pullingly difficult, infuriating, right?
Okay.
But what's your experience with games that are easy versus games that are hard? What are your preferences?
My preference, right? I would consider myself as a casual gamer for most of the time, but when I have friends around, I can try hard. But normally I want something to just chill and relax to, and just sit back and play God. Let the colonies do their thing, and let the duplicates do their survive for oxygen.
So yeah, you like RTS games then, and
yeah. Granted, these games took very long time to play, which is one thing I don't really have nowadays is time.
Yes.
Because here we have a lot of work to do.
That is a huge problem with the hardcore games is, as you get older, you're just can't play these games for me.
Well, actually, those things goes for literally every hobby in general that you used to have as a kid. There's a graph, right? Back in the days, when you're a kid, you have a lot of energy and you have a lot of time, but you do not have money to do things you want to do. When you're a teenager,
yes,
you have the energy to. You don't have money, but you no longer have time. When you're an adult, you have money and you kind of have a bit of energy, but you do not have the time any longer because your time is spent grinding away at 9 to 5 hours. Not to mention some of the games that are in circulation today is that you physically can't play them when you're old. For example, reaction-based game or say first-person shooter with a Twitch tool. The term for this Twitch shooter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's switch topics here a little bit. Let's go into this idea of planned inconvenience and player convenience. So, from your experience as a casual gamer, what makes a game convenient or inconvenient?
Firstly, it started from, actually, believe it or not, I'm gonna be that person and go there. The first step to making your game convenient is to not have a 100 gig file download. And not having an in-game update to unpack the files so I can actually play the damn game when I wanted to do.
I so agree with this. These games update every day. Every time I load up Steam, there's 80 games that are updating. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
They don't even let you launch it until the update release. Can't you just store?
Not to mention it's an offline game. You don't even need to play it on an online DRM.
God, I agree with you so much on this. I hate this so much. The constant updating. Holy crap. Okay, so let's say giving a final product that's ready at launch, that doesn't need a bunch of updates.
And patches. Day one patches.
The day one patches. So this brings us back to Dragon's Dogma 2, actually. So let's take a second here and talk about the launch. Let's talk about AAA launches. in general, and
Okay.
Dragon's Dogma 2. Let's talk about Starfield and Bethesda. Modern AAA games on launch, if you pre-order a game, you're not rewarded. You're punished. You're punished because day one, you're like the guinea pigs. It's like, here,
The beta tester.
find all the bugs for us. Oh, you're so loyal, you paid us ahead of time? Great. Now you're going to work for us for free while you're at it. I mean, come on. Not such bad business.
It's not only that, right? It physically hurts your playable experience because like the launch date review, that's usually when like all the reviews for those games tend to be created. And especially with online games, if you have cheaters problem, that's even worse because now your game is unplayable like Battlefield 5.
You know, it reminds me of the Starfield release. I remember looking at the reviews on day one because I was thinking maybe I'll buy it. I mean, I put plenty of time into Skyrim. Skyrim is a great game. Fallout 4 is a lot of fun. I mean, look, I have issues with both games, right? But I mean, they are still fun. There's no way around it.
That's true. I mean, that's the point of video game. Yeah.
Morrowind is probably one of the best games of all time. So I was looking at the reviews, and they were like 42% positive, 58% negative when I looked. And
Okay.
on day, I think that's what it was. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was something like, it was red. You know, like on Steam, how if it's negative enough, it's red. Like it's like, no, this game is bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is because of what you just said. You're totally right. Actually, now it's probably yellow. It's probably mixed. I actually,
It probably level off a bit, you know, with the update patch and everything.
but you're right that by having a crappy launch, you get the most vocal players, your most loyal fans,
To turn against you effectively.
to turn against you. It's such an obvious mistake.
And yet people keep doing it.
It's like a bad opening in chess. And so Dragon's Dogma 2, look, it's no, like, the Capcom, to be fair to Capcom,
Mm-hmm.
Capcom is no Bethesda, right? They do release games that tend to work on launch, usually. But Dragon's Dogma 2 did have a lot of bugs. And actually, I think even more importantly than that, there was kind of some peculiarities in the game design that I think were bad planned inconveniences. Now, we're going to talk about good planned inconveniences also. But here's one, for example. In this game and in the first game, you could only have one save file.
Actually, let me interrupt the conversation right there. Let's define what is inconvenience and what's bad design in general. Like, what's the difference, right? There's something you have to do that is bad, right? But like it's intentional, and there's something that you accidentally have to do because of like, say, the way the map or the game design was constructed, for example. Like which one? Like my point is like which one is the intended feature and which one is not the intended feature.
Right. Features or bugs, right?
Yeah.
No, this is a good point. So when we talk about planned inconvenience, the two examples that we're going to give, one failed but was intentional, and one succeeded and was also intentional. The one that failed, that I'm going to talk about in a second, is the single save file.
Mm-hmm.
And they did this on purpose because the idea here is it's not crazy. It's not a bad move necessarily, but there was bad execution.
Yeah.
To answer your question. The reason why it was done is because one save file forces you to live with your mistakes. If you take one save file and you have an autosave feature, then every decision you make, you got to carry it with you.
Actually, there's one game I don't remember the name of, but it's a 3D not 3D top-down shooter. I forgot the name of the game, but this game you do not have a save file.
Yeah. So the idea was correct, but here's some of the things that would happen. For example, it would autosave at ends. And some players, there was a bug where the other autosaves weren't actually maintaining after you quit the game. And so if you didn't rest at an inn before you quit the game, you actually lost a few hours of progress. And many players didn't use ins at all. And so they actually, the first time they quit the game before this was patched,
Well, that was a rude surprise for them.
they lost everything. Oh, this is insane. And so planned inconvenience versus unplanned inconvenience. The planned inconvenience is live with your mistakes. The unplanned inconvenience was we executed it badly, and the autosave function didn't work the way it was intended to.
I
It didn't
see.
catch it in QA. And so to answer your question, actually, planned inconvenience can be good, but your team needs to be talented and thorough
Yeah,
in its execution,
that's true.
which I think Miyazaki and all the folks over at From Software I mean, this is clearly a company that QAs their games very well.
I mean, those are usually like the Japanese culture, right? They tend to be very thorough, very passionate, very like through and through on their arts and craft. That's just Japanese culture in general. But granted, I think I've seen some games that like from Western developer that have the quality you described, like Baldur's Gate, for example.
Yeah, Larian Studios, I think they're Dublin-based. They're Irish.
Yeah,
they're kind of all over the place. I think they have a few offices now elsewhere. But yeah, no, you're right that there's a meticulousness to the Japanese game developers.
Yep.
And I think this is part of the reason why they're maintaining their reputations better than Western studios right now.
Yeah.
Big Western studios are really under fire. I mean, you look at Cyberpunk 2077. That was...
I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, right? The Cyberpunk game itself is... It's a tale to be told, to say the very least. From launching horribly with comically bad levels of bug to making an anime that almost top anime of the year chart.
Yes. And that game is great now.
Oh yeah,
2077 is now great.
And you can play it on a 4090. To be fair though, CD Projekt Red as a studio was, at the time, a very marketing-heavy oriented studio.
It seems like maybe Western studios, upon achieving success, get more tempted into marketing instead of meticulous development.
Not to mention capitalism as a culture in general, where they're like, you want your game to be sellable, marketable, and like stuff like that. I mean, just look at CEO of like literally any AAA publisher, like EA, Blizzard, or Ubisoft and stuff like that. Everything they said is pretty much like a controversy in making, but you get my point.
Man, yeah. Well, that's a topic for another day, but we should talk about Blizzard's social media at some point, because it's been a very strange saga.
Yeah.
But I think they're actually they're finally realizing like, oh no, we're being...
I mean, when their wallets start hurting, that's when they start learning their mistake.
No, you're right. Well, let's move on to planned inconvenience. So Dragon's Dogma 2 had some problems. It had some bugs at launch. There's one other negative I want to talk about before we get into, I have some praises for it as well, and we'll end on a positive note. The second problem is, fast travel is a planned inconvenience of this game as well.
Okay, explain why. Because fast travel is usually a convenience feature. You don't have to like travel all the way from point A to point B.
So Dragon's Dogma 1 and 2, you have to get this very rare item, which becomes a permanent fast travel point that you can place where you want. You can't otherwise fast travel at all.
How many items is there in the entire game?
I should have looked this up. I don't know how many there are, but let's say you were to play without a guide.
Right.
You would probably get 4 or 5 of these things, these sort of fast travel locations that you can place yourself.
Right.
To. Now, there's probably a lot more if you use a guide and you're 100% and all that. More of the story is something like this, though. So you can find these, and it's very rewarding. And that first fast travel that you set up back to the main hub, right, changes everything. You don't have to backtrack from wherever you go. You can always, you also need an item to teleport. And here's the point, though. Here's the point about planned inconvenience. That's good. That is good. The problem is they allowed basically DLC. You could buy more of these. So they made an inconvenience. And then they said, if you want to pay us, you can get out of the inconvenience. And to me, that smells like not committing to your game design.
No, it feels like we want more money, people. Give us money.
Right.
When you are giving player access to a resource, like if the resource is too powerful and like it's in demand, right, and it makes it a scarce resource, one of the things that player can do is they can try to figure out a way to get behind the restriction or something like that, right? Get behind the obstacle, or they can just like screw this feature altogether. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to do it the other way. Make another exploit.
So exploit is the key word, right? To wrap this up. If you have planned inconvenience, but then you subvert your own good game design decisions with either A, bugs, or B, pay to win mechanics that go around that inconvenience, then I would say that's a bad example planned. Like that's bad design. Because if you're making a game inconvenient for immersion, and then you dangle like bait on a hook some kind of a way out of that inconvenience,
and it's locked behind a wallet,
then that's crap design. You're actually not committing. If you want to do DLCs, that's fine. Do DLCs, give skins. You can buy more custom pawns. You can buy more gear, whatever, right? But if you have a game design decision that balances the game in a way that makes it more immersive, you have to stick to your guns. You can't just tell players, oh, you can buy your way out of this inconvenience. You have to commit to the inconvenience, which is the final thing here about the game. So here's what Dragon's Dogma 1 did so well, and this is why it became a cult classic. The fast travel was not an option. You had to trek across it wasn't a huge map, but it was a dangerous map. It was dangerous, and when night fell, you'd start to see the sun setting. During the night, if you didn't have oil for your lamp, it was pitch black. You were doomed. Like goblins would be able to defeat you. You couldn't see a damn...
As a Minecraft player, we have a strat called digging out 2-3 blocks and like blocking yourself in for the night. But I suppose it's not an option for this game.
That actually would have been a funny addition for Dragon's Dogma 2.
Like a DLC where you can just dig down 2 blocks and...
I think they actually have camping kits in Dragon's Dogma 2, come to think on it. So they did kind of solve this enough. But the point was something like this. This experience, for a very specific kind of player, I would say, I'm totally shooting from the hip, right?
Okay.
10 to 20% of the market encounters something like this. Like, oh, nighttime and I'm screwed. Like I'm like in the wilderness and it's pitch black and there are wolves howling and I'm going to die. This is a moment. This is a real gaming moment of immersion. This is where suspension of disbelief is at its absolute highest. The player is committed. They're going to remember your game and they're going to write you a good review because they're like, wow, you made me feel something. You brought me into this world and convinced me that it was real. There were consequences to my actions. In Planned Inconvenience, when executed properly, the way the first game executed, you can make a small, low-budget, mid-budget game into a cult classic where your sequel can sell millions of copies of the next game off of these very small planned inconveniences if they lend themselves to immersion and they're not buggy and you can't buy your way out of them. That's real game design. That's good game design. And Miyazaki knows it. And all of these indie developers who made Dead Cells or Hollow Knight, these total rock stars now, they knew this too. Hades, right? So I think planned inconvenience can become a competitive advantage for small to mid-sized studios if well executed. And it seems to me that big studios, they're too tempted. They're too tempted cutting corners.
No, not just that. They're tempted. Actually, there's a whole culture in AAA studio in general. If you have remembered during the Elden Ring launch, right, and the Baldur's Gate launch and everything, the other AAA studio, from Ubisoft, something like that, the devs were just complaining, like, oh, the Elden Ring should not succeed, mainly because, you don't have, fast travel, you don't have objective point, you don't have all this stuff that you used to have, and, yeah. And Elden Ring is make good games. Make good games in it. Don't let the player be the beta tester. You have to test your game. Make sure that everything works on day one and everything like that. Granted, Elden Ring PC port was not perfect, but
true. A rare moment of weakness from Software.
Yeah, but still, I'm not a console gamer. I'm a PC Master Race guy, but
same.
The console, from what I heard, the console experience is a lot better done.
I think the PC, they did fix all that pretty quick, but your initial point is so good, man. The mini-maps, the objective mark. I still remember playing Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4,
yes.
And I got this, I can't remember what the quest was. They were like, oh, there's some, I don't know, there's some lost object. No one knows where it is. It's lost in the ruins. And the second they give me this quest, a quest marker pops up exactly where the object is.
It's right there.
It's like, literally, the narrative design of this quest was telling me, it's lost, we don't know where it is. And then, it pops up on the map? And I still remember back in the game before that, in Morrowind, if someone said, you have to find this item, sometimes you'd have to look on the shelves of a store you're stealing from. You don't even know. Is it going to be on the shelves? Is it in their pocket? Do I have to pickpocket them?
And it's not glowing, making it self-obvious, unlike Genshin.
You'd have to ask, where is this specific armory? Because this is where the the person has the thing that I need.
You have to go read through like a bunch of lores and story to pinpoint the exact location of the thing. That, or just look through the game's like code and trying to find it manually.
Yeah.
The hacker method.
And look, this is where the planned inconvenience encounters that gray area, right? Because, okay, should you give quest markers? And the answer is probably yes. Mm-hmm. Probably. Should you have a mini-map? The answer is going to be probably yes. But not having know your audience, right? Not having a mini-map for some gamers is going to make the game a lot more fun, a lot more interesting. Not having quest markers is going to make the game a lot more immersive. But at what cost? And, it would be interesting. The casual audience.
Granted, as a casual gamer myself, like, just because a game doesn't have an objective mark or minimap, it's not the end of the day for me. I would rather have a furious experience if I can control the game properly. Which, that's a whole another story. During the console port of Elden Ring, for example, I have a really hard time controlling the character, mainly because as someone who used to mouse and keyboard gameplay, it's not working.
Now, Elden Ring is really hard mouse and keyboard. Dude, the comment, if this video were to be big, the comments would be exploding with the mouse keyboard versus controller debate, which is
I am a mouse and keyboard enjoyer. Granted, there's some game that's objectively better with a controller. For example, racing game, because you have variable like input, for example. That's a topic for another day with human interface device, HID.
No, but you're totally right about like the From Software games in general. The mouse and keyboard is really hard, and it's like they were clearly made for Sony. Clearly, it started with Demon Souls. Actually, maybe we'll end on a quick anecdote about planned inconvenience. So Miyazaki's first. Well, actually, this wasn't the first Souls-like. There were a couple before that, but the first one that he was pitching to these Sony executives, he had Demon Souls. And the Sony executive said, "This game sucks. This is so stupid. I die all the time. I don't understand the systems. You're not telling me what I need to do here, and I'm just dying, and my health bar is shrinking every time I die, so it's even harder after I die." And he said, "This sucks. This is never going to work." And he hated it. And I mean, obviously, many years later, this VP, I think he was a VP, has been proven quite incorrect.
I mean, that's how it is in many industry in general. You do something, so you think something's gonna flop. Oh wait, this thing is insanely popular with a niche audience. Actually, another game that have caught my attention recently, I haven't played it yet, but seems very interesting and goes in the line of planned inconvenience because your entire inconvenience is RNG based. The game is Fear and Hunger, very popular in the Russian fan base. I've seen video from basically he was just saying like, oh yeah, it's an immersive sim, but at the same time, the point of the game is every time you do a run, you don't have a save, but every time you have a save, but the save file, the idea of a save file is you have to do a coin toss. For this, right, to save, you have to do a coin toss compared to Dogma 2, right, where you only have one save. Here you can have multiple save also, but to save successfully, you have to do a coin toss. And then there's this niche little feature. If you manage to scour the map and collect some special coin, you can press shift during the save screen, flip those twice, and it will increase your success rate from like 20% to 50%.
Oh man, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
So here's here's the theme, and let's wrap it up with this idea here. But this idea of not even being able to save without successfully passing a coin flip. Now that sounds like in a boardroom, right? That sounds like a terrible idea. But if you're a gamer and you understand the actual feeling of immersion, of being in a game, and if you wrap this feature in a good narrative coat, right? If it feels like it's true to the game design universe, to the world that's been built, you could actually design your games not around what's easiest to do, what's fastest to do, but you could design your games around peculiarities that are deliberately inconvenient, that make the player feel more a part of the world. And this is the advice that we want to give to future game designers. If you want to upset the industry, do the opposite of what AAAs do. Figure out really clever ways to make a game less convenient and see if you can stretch that out into a genuine game design concept.
But like in many advice go, don't do it too much. Don't overdo it. Because if you overdo it, then you have this niche little fan base that suddenly start growing one day, for example.
All right, everybody, that's it for the CMKL Tech Sites podcast. Do all the normal YouTube jazz, like, subscribe, share. Comment below. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We have different professors here, game developers, game designers. We have people who do AI. If you want to know about really anything in the tech world, if you want expertise, we'll find the guest. We'll bring them on the show. We'll ask them your questions, which you're going to drop in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. That was pretty good, right?
That was really smooth. I'm just waiting for the sponsor plug, honestly. Like Raid Shadow Legends sponsors podcast.
Nescafe. Normal day one releases used to be so much better.
Actually, no, we still have to apply day one patch from our own self. It's called blowing all across the pins of the contact tab. That's the day one patch.
Yeah. Oh man, remember that? Those are the days. I mean, like if you release take a N64, like Mario 64 and N64. Like if there were bugs, you couldn't. What are you gonna do? Ship up a new cartridge? Like it wasn't connected to the internet.
Yeah, there's no internet. Actually, the internet has given modern day AAA developers such a massive leeway to, if it doesn't work, we'll fix it later.
We've given them enough rope to hang themselves.
Exactly.
That's actually what happened.
Yeah.
Dude, that's actually, okay, here's how we end shows. I got it. Right there. If we're going to talk about QAing next time, we use that little clip to say, tune in next time.
Tuning next, segue, some rope, you got to get them hooked.
Actually, we had a 30 seconds right there where we were building off each other perfectly, and we gave them enough rope to hang themselves. Please. Boom. Cut.
Cut.
Yeah.